So what sort of questions do you have or comments that you'd like to make?
I was curious about the leaders being in contact with the kids. I kind of got the impression they went into the schools.
Yep.
How does that work? How do they get in? You know, schools, you just don't walk in schools.
Oh, that's right. So that usually is the first question I get, and the way we do that is we don't want to just take leaders and parachute them into a school. We want to build a group of people in the community who have come to know what Young Life is and get to know who those leaders are. And that support mechanism gives us the ability to go to an administrator and say, here's a list of 30 adults in the community who have gotten to know what Young Life is, and we would like to start Young Life at your school. And that starts the conversation. Then the second thing you do is you have to understand how an administrator thinks and what drives them. Captive audience drives them. They cannot allow people to have access to students in a captive audience environment and talk about religious things. They can't. It's part of their job description. They're driven by equal access. If you let the Young Life folks in and every other organization in the world wants to come in, then you have to let everybody in. So it's an all or nothing sort of thing. Those are the sort of things that administrators are driven by. So how do Young Life leaders gain access to kids? By developing an informal relationship with a school administration as to what it will look like to have leaders around the school, when they can be there and where they can be. So I'll just share out of my experience. I live in Blacksburg. Yes, it's Virginia Tech. So the administration at Blacksburg High School knows that if they let one organization have access to kids, that every organization on campus is going to want to have a little brother and little sister chapter at Blacksburg High School. So they have said no access to the school. How we have gotten around that is to align ourselves as tutors, coaches, et cetera, so that we come alongside the administration and the faculty and can have a positive impact in the school environment. Christiansburg High School. Things are a little more relaxed in Christiansburg. It's a whole 6.5 miles away from Blacksburg. And because of that, the administration there has said, we don't mind your leaders coming into school. The only time they can be there is before school in the morning. When that first bell rings, we want them off campus during instructional time. They can come back on the campus when the last bell rings. But we kind of want to know who they are. So could you just make up some sort of badges or passes or something? I mean, it sounds really crazy. We make our own credentials. And those things sit in a cup behind the desk next to the two ladies who run the two ladies who run the school. We think the principals run the school, but we know who runs the school. And when the leaders come in, they'll just pull that out and tag it on their shirt tail or whatever, and off they go around the building. And then when they're done, they come back and they put it in the cup. It's kind of a check-in and check-out sort of procedure, but that's what that administration has done. When Carl Pauly was the principal at Auburn High School, he decided that he did not want to give permission as an administrator to allow leaders to be in the school, but he thought that he would allow parents to determine what they wanted, and suggested to us that we get 10 handwritten notes from parents for each leader that we wanted to have in the school. We had 5 leaders that were going to place at Auburn High School, so we had to get 50 notes from parents, and then they took the notes and they put them in kids' file folders. And so we had permission from 50 parents to allow leaders in school, including the lunchroom. And so if I'm sitting at Robin's table, this is the collateral relational benefit of getting to meet her friends. Now that can be a little bit dicey, because if her friends are not interested in getting to know the Young Life leader, you're kind of invading some sacred space when you're invading a student's lunch table. Is this not true? Absolutely, it's true. So you have to watch. There's the protocol dynamic, but there's also the relational dynamic, that if kids are not ready to really engage you, then you have to be smart enough about how to do that. So those are some of the ways we do that. We've just had this conversation with the principal of Martinsville High School, and he is trying to figure out, it feels good to him and it feels right to him, but he's afraid that a problem is going to occur that he's going to have to deal with and then throw us off campus. So sometimes we'll take small bits of access, work with that for 6 months, grow it a little bit, grow it a little bit. So that's my story at Blacksburg. When I went, met with the principal, they said, go away and don't come back, that as nicely as they could. And so I went away, and eventually, within a year, met a guy who was a track coach, and he said, you want to coach track? First week I'm coaching track, his mom passes away. And the principal who had told me, go away and don't come back, came downstairs and gave me my key to the school. And that was 24 years ago. And now my role in the school is whenever a new coach is hired and placed, girls JV volleyball, cheerleading, football, it doesn't matter, they get my number and they call me, and I'm the welcome wagon. I walk them through the weight room, I walk them through the training facilities, they get their keys, they come down, I show them what their keys work and what their keys don't work, and I just do all the welcome, all the orientation for the athletic department for all new coaches. So, see the relationship I've built? It's a positive relationship with the school district. It's not a contentious one. We're going to come alongside them. We're going to take whatever access they give us and whatever limits they give us, and we will work and live within those.
Just to let you know, Tom, I've talked to some of the administration at Alleghany High School, and they are supportive. We haven't set out any details or anything like that, but they have voiced support.
So it's a very thorough answer to a brief question. But you're hitting on something important, and we have to watch how we craft that relationship so that it has long-term goodwill built into it, not short-term impact. What other questions do you have? Bill?
I'm a spiritual director. I've been spiritual director for men's, women's Emmaus walks and for the Chrysalis walks. And of course, Chrysalis, you're probably aware, tends to deal with basically 18 to 25-year-olds. What's the age range? Because if you're looking at the videos that you've got here, it appears you've got a much broader age range than we had at Chrysalis. How young, and we're talking teens here, but how, you know, depending on your definition of teen, that could be at 11 years old, 13 years old, or whatever. What kind of range are we talking?
28, 32.
61.
Yeah. So the organization is called Young Life. Our work with high school age kids, we also call Young Life because that's where we first started. Our work with middle school students is called Wild Life. We take the Y and the L of Young Life and we stick it in the middle of Wild. And you just went like this. It's like, that is aptly named, isn't it? So that's our ministry with middle school students we call Wild Life. In the last 12 to 15 years, we've gotten better and better with college students. We realize that adolescence is starting earlier and extending later. So we now have a presence on many college campuses, probably 18 to 20 in Virginia alone. And we just call that Young Life College, because college students aren't into really cool names, so we just call it Young Life College. Then we also have a ministry to kids with disabilities that we call Capernaum, and that ministry, I think we run until people are 20 or 21 years of age. So that one has an interesting dynamic to it because of developmental aspects of different people who are involved. You can get kids who are socially pretty with it, who are Downs, and you can also get people who have more significant challenges. And so that one kind of customizes itself on a ministry by ministry basis. And then we have a ministry to teen moms called Young Lives. My wife does that at home, and I'm telling you, never boring, never dull. You just don't know what's going to come up next. And then they don't either, because most of those type of girls, their lives are in the moment, in the moment, in the moment. The planning is a word that does not exist in their vocabulary. So those are the different
ministries. And that's
ministries.
through age 21, isn't it, more or less?
Young Lives is through 19, and we hold them through 21, and we're really trying to figure out how to bridge them to the church better and better. And I'll tell you what is a huge asset for us in Blacksburg is having 2 different churches that have MOPS, mothers of preschoolers. I don't know if you have one here, because that is a great tool. The way the MOPS moms think is they're kind of open and everybody's kind of welcome, and it has a Christian feel, but it's not major or overtly Christian. So it's easy to kind of graft teen moms into MOPS, and we've really learned how to partner that together. We do trainings together on that stuff. So those are the different ministries we have. In general, 6th grade to 12th grade with some college stuff, and then some targeted ministries to 2.
And what we're looking to start here would be the high school group?
We have not, that decision is going to be made by the committee once the committee forms.
Okay.
Because Young Life started at the high school level, it kind of makes sense to install that first and then add everything to it, but we're not confined to that. There's wisdom in starting at the middle school level and then building something that will grow into the high school. Boy, you got to hope the Lord raises up leaders, otherwise you're kind of orphaning a bunch of kids who come out of 8th grade and then don't have anything to connect to. But I would leave that decision to whoever's on that committee, because you know the community in a way I don't. So I don't think I should be making that decision. I can be describing the strengths and weaknesses of each, the benefits and disadvantages of each. But
We don't have a MOPS group here, do we?
We had one that tried to start, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I know the girl who tried to start it up. I'm not sure if that's something that's continuing or if it really had a lot of interest at that time. I can check with her.
But you can see the ability to take a teen mom and graduate her into a group of moms in the community, which really is what most teen moms are having babies, and they're so disconnected from those healthy support systems that are family driven. And so as you get a teen girl more and more integrated with that, I hate to say it, but it's from irregular and abnormal to normal. And it takes years for that transition to occur. But that's a great example of, and it doesn't have to be moms. It could be a group of young moms in a church or multiple churches that have the same function. So,
Thank you.
I
yeah,
have a
thank you.
question. So we had a meeting a few months ago, and we had about 10 or 12 people show up. And like I said, none of you are repeats. So this makes about 25 people that we've had show real interest in Young Life and getting it started. So, you know me, Steve, I'm a go-getter. So like,
I picked up on that.
my next thing is, so are we at a point now that we can ask the last group and this group who is interested to start the committee?
Sure.
And put that together and then try to go forward from that? Because I think we got a lot of community response when I did put it on Facebook and things like that. So I think there is a lot of response out there and people would be open to it, even though they didn't show up here. So if we put that committee together and just started rolling with it, can we do that?
Yep. It can start any way it wants. Here's the, I don't know if this is bad news or good news. Todd knows me a little bit. I think in horizontal and vertical. The Excel spreadsheet is a friend of mine. I'm a really weird youth minister in that regard, okay, the spiritual gift of administration. Having said that, this is what I know about myself. The Lord wants to start something. He does not need my system to do it, okay? So I will have some ideas, but I need you all and your input about how does Clifton Forge and Covington, how does this community work? That's what you know that I don't know, and I will probably never know because I've not lived here. So in that regard, if we wanted to start the committee, we could. So let me just back up and give you 2 descriptions. This is more functional now. When leaders work with kids, they do the C's, for lack of a better description. The first C is contact work. They're going to build relationships with kids. And contact work is the foundation that 3 other C's are built on. Club, which you saw, which is an hour each week, fun, upbeat. And the club talk is designed for the kid in the room that knows the least about Jesus. Is that fair? Then campaigners has nothing to do with bumper stickers and has nothing to do with picket signs, okay? when Young Life started, it was incorporated under the title, the Young Life Campaign Incorporated, so the core kids kind of got dubbed with the label campaigners. It's just a discussion Bible study group. Campaigners is also one of the C's that's built on all of those relationships. And then the third one is camp, which you saw and I think you got a good taste of. So leaders do the C's. Committees, although it starts with a C, this is where you have to really keep up with the changes, they do the P's. They pray, they plan, they promote, and because we have to stick this into the 4P paradigm, they pay. Okay? Everybody laughs when I say that every time. Like, yeah, I knew the money was coming. So now as you sit here, you can probably say, you know what, I could never see myself working with kids doing the C's, but I could see myself being involved as a planner or a promoter. Or there might be others of you who are like, oh, and this is Rick Blevins, the retired biology teacher from Richlands High School that came to a meeting like this, and I said, do you want to be on the committee? He's like, don't do that to me. I want to be with the Roughnecks and I want to be with the Rednecks. I'm like, okay, well, he was a wrestling coach too, so now you can see. And he is retired and working with kids. So he just saw himself fitting into that leader side of thing and not the committee side of thing. We need to build those two groups of people. And I would like to update, if I could, I would love to see more than 2 leaders in the school. I'd love to see at least 2 females and 2 males. And Stella just, the chin went up and down.
In each high school?
In each school, minimum of 2. When you have 2 ladies working together, sharing the ministry to girls, that is a different ministry to teen girls than it is to teen boys. Okay? There's more emotion and acceptance involved in that. A group of 4 sisters, I know what I'm talking about. And on the guy side, it's just, we're going to have fun and we're going to be stupid and we're going to have more fun and be stupid. And you're just loving boys until they finally get a brain. And once they get a brain, I'm sorry, but you know this is true because you have friends that's like, man, he has no brain, right? My son's your age, I get it, I know. If you would have seen my son did last night, you'd be putting him in the no brain category. So, but the guy's ministry is always going to look and feel a lot different than the girl's ministry is going to look. So I think it's valuable to have 2 men and 2 women together leading, minimum. And if you have more than that, in a middle school, is your middle school 6th, 7th, 8th grade? So one of the things that's kind of middle school is a little bit different. High school, everything mixes and blends and the seniors interact with the freshmen. Middle school, the 6th graders come in. I don't know what they do with them here, but in Blacksburg, they got pods, and that's how they're set up academically. And they have a wing, and they have their own lunch, and those 6th graders don't even barely know they're 7th and 8th graders in the building. And so when we put leaders in, we'll put leaders in to work with the 6th graders, and then they just keep moving with them. And then the next year, we look for a couple new leaders to put with the 6th graders, and they move with them. So ideally, a middle school ministry would have 3 women and 3 men, and a guy and a male and a female would focus on the 6th graders, 7th, 8th, and then if they stay with it, the ones that graduate, the 8th graders can cycle back around. So that just gives you more continuity. Now, who said they had middle school kids here? So you can see the value in this, where moms and dads are more in touch with a middle school kid's social schedule and helping to direct it and dictate it. Where at the high school level, the high school students like, I'm going to so-and-so's house, and then the parents have to decide if they want to exercise veto power over that plan. So in the middle school, you're going to get more continuity in your ministry if you attach some leaders to Janie and Susie, and they're with Janie and Susie for a couple years. It just gives a lot more continuity to the ministry that I think makes it more successful. So there's just a ministry paradigm shift than when you go to the high school, thinking through the dynamics of where they're at developmentally. So the more leaders, the better. There's no limit on that.
I just think if we get a committee started, and like any of you that are here that are interested could tell me, or Steve, you know, hey, I'd be interested in serving on the committee. I can contact the group that we had before, see who is interested in starting on the committee, and really come together and start praying for leaders, because I see that as one of our biggest obstacles here is finding leaders to go into the schools to be able to do this. So I think we could get together and we could start praying for that. We could, you know, network out to who we know and really just have a core group that is willing to see this thing through as far as we can take it.
Then the only other thing I would add in terms of leaders is there's maybe 5 or 6 different models of what you can do with your payroll. You can have an all-volunteer team in a school. You can have a team that has a part-time person that could be, and I'm not saying this is, I'm just using it as an example, I don't know if this is true, but sometimes a church can afford a youth person part-time but not full-time, and Young Life could be the other part of that. In Halifax County, we got started with a teacher staff. Math teacher, 13 years experience, and when she ran into Young Life, she said, this is what's going to allow me to finish what I've been doing all day long. All day long, she's interacting with kids and constrained in sharing her faith because she's a teacher, and constrained in sharing her faith because she's up to her butt in math all day long, okay? And I say that with all due respect, but then one night a week, she gets to get a bunch of kids together and flip her Bible open, and she doesn't have to worry about all of those things that are going on in the building, except those relationships come with her. So teachers have a lot of times have a lot of the relationships built, but don't have a platform or an avenue to talk about the gospel, and Young Life can be that platform or that avenue. This is particularly really strong at the middle school level. There are 5 middle school teachers at Ben Franklin Middle in Franklin County, and it's 100 to 140 kids a week coming to Wildlife. It is out of control. And kids love it, and parents love it, and just the fear factor of dropping your kid off when you just see this going on is just, it's amazing. So that it could be a teacher staff that's paid just to kind of hold the fort and be the hub for a team of leaders. We would never expect one person to do all facets of the ministry. We still need a team, but you could have a part-time paid person in the middle of it. When we bring a brand new person on staff in Young Life, that's called a staff associate. The general budget for that type of person is in that 55,000 range, but we do ask them to bring 20,000 with them. I think that's where you guys struggled, was kind of in that sort of fundraising point. You just never really could get everything pulled together. And then if you had a full-time trained person, that budget would be in the 80 to 85 range. That's the whole budget. The salary for that person is typical of what you would pay a teacher in the county, so, or Covington City. So those are the different models. I'm not locked into any one of them. There's advantages to some and disadvantages. You know, it takes longer to get to that full-time paid person. The quality of your ministry is higher when you have a full-time person, and they can do a lot more recruiting and networking. They're a face for the organization. It took 9 years to go from informational meeting to full-time staff person in Halifax. That was long. It took 11 months in Franklin County. That was short. So.
I have a question.
Yep.
Of your committee, like when you start committee, how many of those committee members are really going to be doing double duty at first to be leaders as well? Or is that even a possibility?
That's interesting.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, and
'Cause that's what
the
happens
names
in
in my
churches, like
names in my head are Amanda Busco in Richland. She said, "I want to get this started. We're going to build a committee." And 6, 7, 8 months into it, she came to me and she said, "I don't think I'm supposed to be on committee. I think I love kids too much."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yay." That's the hard person to find. We can backfill somebody that can send out newsletters. We can't always find somebody who's going to go be with kids. Are you sure the committee's going to be able to get along without me? Please, you know. So, but the interesting part there is we put a staff associate at Richlands, Lindsay Shackelford, who just graduated from JMU, and the 2 people on our team are Amanda, who is still in her 30s, and Rick Blevins at 63. So it's just this very interesting team. And Lindsay's like, "I have Rick Blevins, who's led Bible studies for community and, you know, for years in the community. He's on my team. How do I lead him?" Like, you don't lead him. You just show him how to love kids, you know. So it can be moms, it can be dads, it can be, there's a variety of different folks it can be. Here's one of the ones that happens. Your community colleges around here, or I think the high schools, have a position where a person is paid to interact and engage students to try to get them to community college and technical schools, to try to engage students who might not think of doing any education past high school, and usually that's a half-time job. We have 2 of those positions in the state where that's filled half-time with a person who the other half of their salary is a Young Life salary, but don't tell the educational system that that's what we're doing. Because their job is to be in the school all day long, going through the guidance office, finding out who the kids are who are at risk of not continuing with education after high school, and going to the cafeteria and find them and sitting down and talking to them. Looks a lot like Young Life. So there's a lot of ways we can maybe mix and match and slice and dice staffing levels.
Steve, tell us briefly, if you will, about October camp opportunities.
Okay. We have 24 properties in the United States that you saw represented up here, and the closest one's outside of Goshen. Starting the weekend of October 13th, we will have 500 to 600 high school students from the state of Virginia in there every weekend, and we would love for you to come out, even if it's just a day trip on Saturday, and see camp and watch what's going on. If you're going to go out on a Saturday, the typical schedule is a club meeting Friday night, a club meeting Saturday morning, a club meeting Saturday night, a club meeting Sunday morning. You want to make sure you see clubs, so you either got to get out there pretty quickly on a Saturday morning by breakfast is usually at 9 or 9:30, and you should actually go for breakfast. The food's very good.
Great.
Yes, it is.
But what's even more important is to sit in the dining hall and have breakfast and watch the food service people with an all-volunteer work crew that was trained the night before serve a meal in 18 minutes to 600 teenagers. Boom!
It's
In it,
impressive.
on it, and out. It's very, very impressive, and you just pick up the mechanics and the logistics and the flow of how we do what we do and why we do it, and then see clubs. So if you go in the morning, definitely go for breakfast. If you go in the evening, definitely go for dinner. You want to take a meal in.
On that notebook that you have flipped around, if you flip the page, it says weekend something. So if you're interested in that,
Yep.
put your name on that list, and I can contact you and contact the previous group that we had here and try to put together a group of people
Sure.
to go to camp. You would not want to miss this.
So it's every weekend,
awesome.
October 13, 20, 27, and then, it's every club start Friday night around 9 or 10 in the evening, and they're done at noon on Sunday. And I'll be there the whole weekend of the 27th, 8th, 9th. So
Yes.
if you don't have a preference, come see me.
If you want to go with somebody familiar, Lori and I would probably make as many sorties out there as we needed to get everybody out who wanted to go.
It would be awesome if we could all go the same weekend
It would.
and everybody
But
be
we probably
together
can't,
and
so we'll take more
brainstorm
than
and, what?
I said it'd be awesome, but we probably can't do that, so
Yeah.
we'll make more than one run.
However.
Well, I'd be willing to go out. if
Stella
somebody
and
wants
Shanna,
to.
Shanna said
would,
too,
yeah,
she would
she'd
be
willing
out
to
there.
Sometimes she
go out,
works
but,
on
you know, just
She would be happy to host people, she said. Shanna was a previous Young Life leader, so.
Now, there's another opportunity if you want, and Todd referenced this earlier, where if you wanted to see what a local club looked like, you could go, was it Monday nights that, in Lexington, they have club on Monday nights, so you could go on a Monday to see club. And do you have Quentin's cell phone and information still?
Yeah.
Okay. So that is, but we would just want to know in advance so we can make sure they in fact are having clubs. Sometimes sports schedules move things around. We wouldn't want you to make a trip and miss out. And we just want to make sure that they know you're coming.
But one thing I think too that everybody needs to realize, camp, we have one sitting in our backyard and we're very blessed. So Young Life totally, when Shannon was doing it, we took full advantage of that. But the local ministry and the camp are two total
Two
separate
separate
things. I think sometimes that might have been, people related the
Yes.
camp to the ministry.
Because sometimes you
And-
have a church that has a church camp.
Right,
And the two are
right.
very integrally linked, and that's not the case in Young Life. The committee you would be developing and the financial responsibilities you would have would be to reach kids here in Alleghany County and Covington City. The camp has its own staff, its own budget, its own directorship and everything.
Your local kids, you try to take to camp somewhere other than, I mean, you want to take them out of their comfort zone. So we went to New York and we went to North Carolina. Did you go to you didn't go to North Carolina? Yeah. That's,
I want to give you an illustration. Put those in your other hand. Okay, what am I doing to Bill's arm right now? I'm twisting his arm. Okay. The reason I'm twisting your all's arms right now is I would encourage you, if you can, to see either a club or camp. Have you ever tried to put a puzzle together without the box top that has the picture? It's really hard, isn't it? If you see club and you see camp, you're going to see what the finished product looks like, which will make it easier for you to understand what your work is and get into the finished product.
Yeah.
So do yourselves the favor of shortening the time frame that it's going to take to build this by getting a picture and getting an image of what that is like. There's nothing like experiencing it in person. Jacob, yes?
Yes.
Nothing like experiencing in person. So, and I'm not just trying to sell you on Young Life, I'm trying to save you time. Go see club or go see camp. We're getting started in Chatham right now, and they asked me, what can we do? And I said, well, make a checklist, and everybody's got to either go see camp or go see club. And a third item you could consider is that there will be a fundraising banquet in Lexington this fall that eventually, if we need to raise funds, it might make sense for 2 or 3 of you to go see that, and that way collectively among you, you'll have a picture of everything. Please do that for yourselves. You're not doing it for me. It just shortens the time frame of your preparation, if that makes sense.
So I guess the next step that we would do from here is if
Thanks
you're
for
interested in
that.
being on the committee, I guess come let me know, or flip that and put a committee interest. And if you want to be on a committee, or you know someone, oh yes, they couldn't be here today, but I know they would love to do that.
If you want to volunteer a friend to be on a committee,
Yes, do that.
write all their names down, by all means.
I would love to contact them.
We have a large pool of people who said they were coming, didn't show, and you
Right.
can nominate them
Yeah.
in absentia.
I'll look at the weekends. I'll put you on the email list. I'll start sending out emails to the whole group to try to put together a weekend of who wants to go. Try to start a basic committee. I don't know how many people are on a committee. 10, 15?
8 to 10 to 12, somewhere in
8
that
to 10 to
range.
12.
We had
And,
enough work for 10 people to keep busy once it's all up and running.
and then be able to kind of go from there. Is that-
Once that's up, they have club on Mondays at 8 p.m. in Lexington that we could take the committee to.
Sure. Or anybody, really,
Right.
committee or anybody who wants to as a club. Would you be willing to be kind of point person for me, Todd, for
Hey, his friend will do it.
hey, everybody who just wants Todd to be on point for coordinating club visits, raise your.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I can do that.
okay, so if you want to visit a club, talk with Todd or get his contact information. If you want to visit camp, Lori and Bill, and then I'll try to find out the date for the banquet. That would be good to have, particularly if there's people who love throwing a party. That's the type of person you want to bring. So. Anything else? Questions?